It's the Uprising.
Welcome back. This is the Uprising podcast. I have on today Danyell Lanier. She is running for Oklahoma's 2nd Congressional District, more eastern Oklahoma. And I wanted to have her on today. She is a Democrat. And would you consider yourself a progressive, Danyell?
I would.
Yeah, so she is progressive, running in District 2 of Congress in Oklahoma. And I really appreciate her being on the show. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Great. So I wanted to talk about some of her life experiences today, some of her inspirations, and why she wanted to run. So the floor is yours. Why did you decide to run for Congress?
It's time for women, people of color, to step up and have a seat at the table, for lack of better words.
Mm-hmm.
It's just time. Here we are, 2020, and a African American has never held this seat in Congress, ever. And the last time that a woman held this seat was in 1921.
Oh.
Anytime that decisions are being made, everyone should be at the table. When we have a majority of people that can't relate, or that their ideals are out of the loop, that for the consensus for everybody, it's time for a changing of the guard. And that's part of the reason that I'm running. It's also a reason why I feel like our government is out of balance the way that it is. It's because it's choosing to represent only a certain demographics of people that look and think like them. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have someone that doesn't look or think like you could feel like you're left out of the loop. People have the misconception that Oklahoma is a deep red state, when actually we're more of a non-voting state. I've encountered more voter apathy out on the campaign trail than people that just doesn't vote. Most of the time people are like, I don't vote because they're not talking about anything that matters to me. Mm-hmm. So for me, I have been out there listening and asking, what does matter to you? For me, what mattered to me and prompted me to jump in the race was that my mom had a stroke, had 2 strokes last year. And I really almost lost her because of healthcare, because of the rural closings of the hospitals. I had to take her to Texas in order to kind of get the care that she needs. And for those of us, I live in Hugo, for those of us that live close to the river, as we call it, or that live near the Texas border, a lot of times for medical care, extreme medical care, we have to go over to Dallas to kind of get the sufficient care that we need. And it was only because Texas was so close that my mom was able to kind of get the comprehensive medical care she needed to fully recover from her stroke. So that was a huge part of it. Yeah. What solidified? She is. She's doing better. My mom is 80. She's driving. She has a birthday coming up now. Yeah. And, I almost lost her just because of the healthcare issue. What solidified that race for me was I was on a pharmacy run for her at Walmart one day. And for those of us that, shop at Walmart, you can also pay for groceries in the pharmacy area. So while I was standing behind a lady and in the pharmacy, and when they told her how much her prescription amount was going to be, she started handing them the food back and putting her food back to pay for her medications. So that kind of solidified the fact that why do we have people at the register putting food back, having to make life choices on whether they need their prescriptions or their medications more? Why don't we have leaders that's actively working to change the narrative about that, or that's fighting for legislation to where we don't have any of our citizens having to make those life decisions? I come from a naval background. I'm a Navy veteran. So my public service, if you will. My heart has always been with helping people and being there. When I graduated from high school, I went to the Navy. I served honorably. When I discharged, I went into the healthcare field, actually, and that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm not a direct hands-on person in healthcare, but I am a healthcare compliance trainer, to where whenever there's like new legislation coming out, whenever there is something to do with healthcare law, I'm able to take that and give that to the people so they understand and what's going on and how to stay in compliance with that. So my commitment to service has always been there. It's only been really in like the last few years that I feel like I need to be doing more. If we're being completely honest about that, it's definitely was the election of 2016 that kind of prompted me to step up my civic activism,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, kind of the same boat. Senator Sanders really got me into politics, so, and I've
Mm.
been pretty much stepping up, and I haven't been doing the show very long, but I felt like I needed to make a change, and I had an important voice, and I wanted to have other people that have voices that want change, and
Exactly.
that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast, because you are a candidate of change, and that's what we need in a country. Like you were saying, you're the only a black woman has never been elected in that position, which is unacceptable.
Yes.
And you said a woman hasn't even been elected in since the
100
20s.
years.
Yeah.
1921,
Yes.
almost 100 years.
Yeah. So representation is so important when it comes to government, when it comes to a lot of things, especially
Yes.
government. If you just have one side speaking for everyone, then usually that one side usually prevails, and that's just not acceptable. We need new voices in Oklahoma and everywhere else in this country. So, so you are a vet. You went into the Navy. Why did you feel like you wanted to go to the Navy? Is this because you wanted to serve your country, or was it because of college, or?
It's kind of all of those. For me, at being 17, 18 years old, growing up in Hugo, just a little bit about me. I was born in Tahlequah. I am a Cherokee citizen as well,
Hmm,
but I was actually raised in Hugo.
okay.
So, if for those that might be listening, if you were as Hugo, it's southeastern Oklahoma.
Hmm.
It was a great town. You know, we all kind of knew each other, just kind of growing up there. And for me, I wanted to expand past, the four corners of my town.
Hmm.
I didn't have technology the way we have it now in 1994, but I read a lot. I had books. That was my social media.
Hmm.
So for me, I wanted to go past that. I knew there was a world out there, and I wanted to see what it was. Like many students that continue to graduate from high school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to go into. If we're being completely honest, I'd always loved like studying rocks and dinosaurs
Hmm.
and things dealing with the ocean. But, I didn't really understand, I could have been an archaeologist, I could have, been an oceanographer. But people, my teachers and people in my community wasn't speaking those dreams to me and telling me that, hey, little black girl, little, Native American black girl, you can do that too.
Hmm.
Instead, I was encouraged to go out and find a job so that I could make a living,
Hmm.
and that's something that I kind of take into my speeches when I'm especially talking to young people, is that don't get so caught up in that you're going to make this living that you forget to live.
Hmm.
So I know. And for me, I just felt like those dreams were out of my reach, that, I couldn't do them. I didn't feel motivated to do them. So for me, I just was like, okay, I'm going to leave this town. And the Navy was the first boat, literally, steam, first thing steaming, that kind of took me out of that. And it allowed me to travel the world, to actually experience other cultures, to see how the people lived, to form diplomatic relationships, and to really have an understanding of how the government worked, how allocation and funding, especially federal funding, how that worked. The job that I actually held in the military, it dealt with the budget.
Mm.
So as a young person, 19, 20 years old, I was already understanding, of basically how a $500 million budget worked and how the allocation worked with that. So that allowed me to have an understanding of fiscal responsibility. Normally it's the other party that always like to kind of throw that word around, fiscal responsibility,
Mm.
but I am the candidate of change. So that's my word too.
Yeah.
Anybody can, that's responsible with federal dollars can kind of use that as their word. So that was something that I did learn early on, diplomatic relations, being able to adapt and, collaborate with people that their ideas, their religious thinking, their world is a lot different than yours.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to become a well-rounded person. And those were skills that I use today. I'm able to sit down with people that think differently than me. I'm able to listen to people that grew up differently than me. Without feeling like my way is the right way or you must think like me, but rather how can we come together and support each other in our own lanes respectively and still make change happen.
Yeah. So the military definitely changed your perspective on life. Would you say
Right.
that?
It did. It absolutely did. Yes.
Yeah. So, what kind of inspirational people kind of drive you in life? Like, doesn't necessarily have to be a person or a book. So you said you read a lot of books. Like, what was your favorite book growing up and currently? And like, who do you look up to when it comes to like inspirational figures in our history?
I'm going to be very honest. As a teenager, I was really inspired, just really inspired by Gandhi,
Mm.
Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Gandhi. I was a Judy Blume reader. that,
Mm.
that definitely tells you how old I am.
Yeah.
So, just kind of flashing back to some of my authors, it was then because they kind of set the tone that yes, there is oppression. And being a teenager, I didn't really understood what oppression was. I just knew that everybody wasn't having a good life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just really couldn't verbalize that then. But just kind of looking back, it I was able to kind of see I could identify with that. I loved history, still do as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, I love civics. For those that's familiar with that term, I love civics. I love U.S. history, world history. So just kind of understanding the dynamics of what has happened with every culture, every civilization, and why we are still dealing with those same problems now, it's just has come full circle for me. It was more of a realization that everything, I am the sum of everything learned, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
everything that I didn't understand, why I really loved, why do I want to read about, this particular time in history, from the Renaissance period on, Civil War on, that I would become a fact checker now, if
Mm-hmm.
that helps out. Dealing with people online that have something to say and they're about this and they're like, oh, this is what happened in history. I'm like, no, that didn't. What are you reading?
Yeah.
That didn't happen. That's not true. So, and then I'm able to kind of flash back to Coach Burkhalter's 8th grade class and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of remember what happened then. So it helps out a lot with that. Now, my inspiration, if you're going to ask that, it's people, believe it
Ah,
or not.
great.
I don't have to go far out of my community to be inspired. I'm able to kind of look at the people right around me, from my cousins graduating from high school, from the young people, for the just people. They're my
Mm-hmm.
inspiration.
That's great. That is great. Um, so that isn't really inspiring that you say that the people inspire you, which is so important. I had an interview with Kojo. He's running for first Tulsa, and he
Yeah.
said he had such a great point. He said that no one's coming to save us; we need to save ourselves.
Correct.
And do you feel like kind of more of the rural areas kind of feel like no one stands for them?
I do. I have a ranching and farming background. I grew up on a ranch here in Hugo, and we're rural Oklahoma,
Yeah.
so we do understand the agribusiness part of that. And I hear some people, including the current incumbent, speak to that, but I'm not hearing about the everyday person, like the lady that couldn't pay for her prescription in Walmart.
Mm,
We're not hearing about the mom and pop shops that have, been down our downtown, our small towns forever, or the, Miss Linda who runs the flower shop or anything like that. We don't hear about those people that make our community great.
mm,
We don't hear about our barbers that have been the cornerstone of our community for years. We don't talk about those people that are active in our community. They don't hold a fancy title. Some of them, may not hold a college degree, but they're good people. When we lose contact with those people, they've been the ones that have been holding our communities together. When we decide we're going to go off and live the world, or we're going to move to Dallas or Oklahoma City or Tulsa, those have been the people that have remained back, that has continued to be the staples of the community. When we forget about them and we lose focus with our legislation and we forget that they exist, we have become out of touch with reality and in community. And that I consider myself kind of the community candidate, because I want to represent the Lindas and the Shawns and the Larrys and the, Beths of our communities. I want to make sure they always have a voice in with me and in legislation, because those are the people that need it most. When we're talking about expanding Medicaid, we're talking about the Elnoras, which is my mom, talking about those that, are suffering from hospital closures. We're talking about those people that can't go get a basic checkup because they don't have insurance, or they don't have the money to pay for the labs, to pay for the healthcare. Means we're losing focus, and I feel like that's where we're out of balance with our government now. They've lost focus of the common person.
hmm I think a lot of politicians worry too much about their donors, their big donors, and
Yes,
don't worry about their citizens they're actually in charge of, to help
absolutely.
help their lives. Because if your constituents are suffering and you don't do anything about it, then it's on you to change that, or you need to get someone that's in there to change. Because if you're not a leader and you don't care about your community, you just care about big donors, then
Right.
nothing's going to change. You're going to do what they want. You're not going to do what Jim and or Susie down the street wants. Because
Absolutely.
so you're running a grassroots campaign.
We are the blade of the grass. I am definitely running a grassroots campaign. My campaign is funded, and if you look at the FEC reports, you'll definitely see
Mm-hmm.
that it is funded by the people. I appreciate every dollar donation, every $3 donation, every $5 donation. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate them all. I don't have any PACs supporting me. I don't have any backing of any dark money or anything like that. My money definitely comes from the people that know me around the country, or that want to believe in a candidate around the country.
So you don't take super PACs, and would you never take super PACs?
I will never take super PACs, because that's part of the issue that we have right now with campaign finance reform. Is we have our leaders are loyal to those donors as opposed to the people, and they want introduce legislation that's going to go against their donors.
Yeah, like your opponent takes big oil money.
Absolutely.
He takes a lot of
Absolutely.
other things he shouldn't be taking.
Yes.
Uh, and that's the problem. If you take all this money from special interests, you're gonna, like I just said, you're gonna listen to you're gonna take their phone call. You're not gonna take your actual citizens you're supposed to be in charge of's phone call. You're not gonna listen to
Absolutely.
them. And what do you think? Why do you think that the rural areas kind of more lean more to the right and more elect Republicans? What do you think is a disconnect when it comes to that?
Their messaging. If we're being completely honest about that, their messaging. When you have a group that banters to people by saying we are the party, or I'm the person of Christian values, or I am family values, if you will, it kind of leaves them with the label, whereas this is what they're bantering, that I am in the belief somehow that only me and my party represent family, and we're representing the Lord. We're in a Bible Belt. We're honest about that. We know where we
Mhm.
are. We're in Oklahoma. So a lot of people that we come in contact with, we all have religious backgrounds. My stepdad was a pastor until he got sick in 2005 and couldn't stand in the pulpit anymore. So I come from a Christian background as well. I don't need that I don't have to banter to that and try to use scripture to gain followers. I do believe that there is a separation of church and state. And just
Mhm.
like I tell people what my personal beliefs are, it has no bearing on legislation because that excludes people. We have people that decide they're not going to believe in any religion or become a part of any organized religion at all. Some people choose to be atheists. Some people choose a different dogma.
Mhm.
And if you're saying your Christian values, sometimes just saying that you can exclude those people because they feel like, I don't believe in the same God as you, or I don't believe in God at all. So they may not feel like they have a voice.
Yeah.
So
Um,
the messaging is what kind of keeps them in the loop, especially when they're saying pro-life, and they're accusing people of murdering babies. Every day, I get 2, 3 postcards from a certain pro-life alliance group calling me a baby killer, or saying, I don't have any values. And these are handwritten postcards. And it's funny, but it's not funny, is that my brother had checked the mail one day and he was like, "Oh, you have fans, people are supporting you. Look at all these postcards you got." I was like, "Read one." And when he read it, he was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Yeah." I think that we need to change the narrative on what being pro-life means.
mhm.
Being pro-life can also mean you support the people that are alive, that you aren't caging children, that you are supporting legislation that help the people that are already here with better health care so that they can extend their life and they can have a better quality of life.
Yeah. You can't be pro-life, but don't care about people after they are born. Uh,
Absolutely.
at that point, it's just a talking point, and just to divide people on issues like that. Um, what do you think progressives need to do to win over rural Americans?
Our messaging.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is that's the whole thing. And that, I'm not a young person, but
Hmm.
I'm 44, about to be 45, but when we look at the people that are still holding a lot of these seats and that are still running for office, they are a different generation. They are 60s and in their 70s. I'm not saying anything's wrong with
Yeah.
the person in their 60s and 70s running for office, but their ideals, they're catering to a certain genre. And even within our own party, we can't always seem to get on the same page with our messaging. We have some candidates that are saying free this and free that, hoping to bring across, but in the truth, people realize nothing is really free.
Hmm.
So why are we even using an outdated message like that? So I think that is a turnoff to some people. When we have some people that simply can't define what it is that you want to do, what exactly are you running on? What are you running for?
Hmm.
I think that we can kind of get lost in that. For me,
Yeah.
I am a person that I want rights for everybody, and not have to define that. Oh, so you believe that illegal aliens should come over here, and oh, you believe in killing babies, and people say this to me. I'm like, I am a supporter of the Constitution. So what does the Constitution say about a path to citizenship?
Hmm.
What does the Constitution say? What does the government say? What has this? the Supreme Court of the United States ruled currently
Mhm.
on abortion. Where are we at? If we're going to be a nation of laws, we have to uphold those laws. And if
Mhm.
those laws no longer serve people, then we have to work together to change that, if
Yeah.
that's not the way of the people. So
Yeah.
normally when I say that, people understand where I'm coming from, and that's kind of where we are. We have this back and forth mudslinging that's going on, and the voters are caught in the middle of that.
It is. They do get a lot of crossfire with that,
Ooh,
and I think the Democratic Party, especially for rural areas, a lot of people don't feel like the Democratic Party cares about them, and
yeah,
unfortunately, some definitely don't. But I think progressives like Bernie Sanders is really popular with rural area voters because he
I agree.
cares, and like you're saying, the messaging, and we need to, as a left, we need to figure out what exactly we need to say to rural voters to make them realize we care about you and we want you to have a better life as much as anyone else, because I do really believe in the American dream, but right
Yes,
now the American dream doesn't really exist in my eyes, and
right.
unfortunately, and that's even more so for people that live in inner cities or rural areas. And I think both of those our communities are really forgotten, and that's leaders like you and other leaders, progressive leaders, are trying to change that. And I really appreciate you running, and we're getting pretty close to the time that you're giving me. Do you have anything else quick to say before we get out of here?
Absolutely. My goal as of right now is I want to support our ranchers and farmers. I support healthcare. I am definitely waiting to see if 802, which is the Medicaid expansion for Oklahoma at the state level, is going to be passed, because I'm going to advocate really hard for that at the federal level, to support that initiative and make sure Oklahoma gets the funding that they would need from the federal level to help support the Medicaid expansion. So I'm kind of waiting patiently to see what's going to happen with that. I'm a huge supporter of public education. I went to public school my entire life. My son, I have a 9-year-old, is in public school. So I would want everybody to have a quality access to a quality education. I support our college students and making college more affordable for them, and that they're not saddled down with student loan debt. I would like to kind of work together to see what programs, what initiatives we could kind of come up with to kind of help out with those student loans. And in addition, I want to tell people that maybe college might not be right for you. I believe in fellowships, internships, the VOTEX that we have, certification programs. So how can we also band together to kind of help out with those initiatives as well? I support small business. I want to make sure that they're thriving and able to stay in business as well. So I am open to listening to people. I am a common sense candidate. I am not trying to take anybody's gun away, or any of this other rhetoric that's being thrown out there. I'm
Hmm.
not trying to harbor illegal people in Oklahoma or anything like that. I do believe in a path to citizenship, because it's stated in the Constitution we would do that. So I just support common sense solutions. And you can find more on my website at Danyell for Congress. My name is not spelled traditionally, so that's DanyellForCongress.com. And we're across all social media platforms at the same name, Danyell for Congress.
Okay. Thank you for having me, being on my show. I really appreciate your time, and thank you. This is the Uprising.
I'm happy to hear that. I want to encourage people, even if get to know the candidates. The magic happens at your local level, your city councils, your commissioners court, your state candidates, your state senators and HD candidates, and yes, your congressional candidates. Get registered to vote, get involved, find out what's going on. It's a huge movement across every platform that's happening right now. Stay engaged and stay alert.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
The racism.